Welcome everybody to Webinar Wednesday. I'm Casey Taylor, Software Product Manager here in the US. I'm going to be presenting today. As you are probably aware, this is a series of webinars. We also provide them as recordings after. Those links will be provided in the chat today and also in follow-up information. Today, though, I'll be covering simplifying software management with TwinCAT 3.1 Build 4026 Package Manager. So you're going to hear me say that quite a bit today. Today's webinar will be a little shorter, more focused than maybe some of our other webinars have been, but I think it's a really important topic, so we want to make sure we cover this. Please, as you have questions throughout the webinar, feel free to post those in the GoToMeeting. There'll be some people answering throughout the webinar, and then at the conclusion, I'll try to take some time to answer some of those as well. So let's go ahead and proceed. So a few things that we're going to cover today. First, I'll give a bit of an introduction, why we adopted the package manager, what a package manager is, those things. Then I'm going to provide some definitions for some of the components within our package manager. Packages and workloads are two key topics, as well as feeds or sources. And then we'll proceed on to some custom feeds and packages, how you might use these in your company on a custom basis. We'll go through configurations, and then we'll do a little bit of a hands-on demo with Package Manager 2.0. Then we'll move on to how to address remote systems, how you can manage these, the migration tool, and then we'll have questions at the end. So why did we do this package manager? So with 4026 is the changeover for when we switch to delivering our software with packages. So TwinCAT's always been composed of smaller pieces. We've always had this TwinCAT cube icon here on the right, where there's the TwinCAT system, but then there's little cubes that represent different components within TwinCAT. And this actually aligns very well with a package management system. So with a package management system, we have modules or smaller components that add up to a larger install. So this philosophy aligns well with TwinCAT, and we've even taken a little further and developed the pieces into even smaller components, which we'll talk about today. So I talked a little bit about the why. There's actually some really good benefits that we get by transitioning to package management. Increased agility. So when we build these smaller package components, they can be tested individually, they can be updated individually. It provides an independence of those, which lets us be more agile. We can quickly release a change for one component without affecting others in the system. We can also designate that those packages have dependencies, so we can ensure a consistent system. So if you install one certain version of a package, you'll know that you have all the right components to support that package. And then the speed is going to increase as well. So we have tests for the different packages, so we can test just that package if we're just updating just that package, and that allows us to deploy quicker. The testing is not only for us, but we have allowed you as the customer now access to more of the pre-release software so that you can also test, see what's sort of on the horizon. If you want to be an early adopter, you can do that without much hassle. Before, if you were to test Beckhoff code, you would need to coordinate with us. Often it involved sending you files over email systems or otherwise. The package management system allows us to bypass that. It allows you to do the updates and testing of components of TwinCAT the same you would do just with regular supported software. So a lot of advancements, things we think will improve the speed, the quality, and just our overall agility. So where do you get the package manager? You've probably seen, if you've gone into our download section, there's the biggest icon in the top right is the package manager. This is where you find it. Once you install the package manager, you no longer need to come into this download section to install components or remote managers or anything. You're going to get all of the components after that point in time through the package manager system. So that is where you locate it. Next, I want to step into what is a package. So let's open up a package real quick here. And inside the package, there are a few things. There's first off the payload. So this is the files. This can be installers, uninstallers, libraries, setting files. Really anything that needs to be delivered to the system will come in the payload part of the package. The package also contains metadata. So the metadata is the name, the version, author, description. There's also things like type and all sorts of information in the metadata that describes the package itself. And then an important aspect is the dependencies. So a package can have dependencies. These dependencies can specify not only other packages, but what versions of those packages need to be installed. And this ensures that the right components are all installed so that you have a functioning system. And your packages or your dependencies can actually have other dependencies. So there's a whole chain of systems. The package manager software, though, takes care of resolving all that and then making sure that those things are installed when you install your package. So I'll give you a couple examples of what a package might look like. So the PLC editor, PLC XAE, is one of our most common packages. It is composed of the payload, which is shown in the top left, the PLC installer files. It also, shown in the top right, has metadata. So the TwinCAT XAE PLC is its actual name. Version 5.9.2 is the current version. The author is Beckhoff Automation, as you'd expect. And then the package also has dependencies. So in order to install this, the PLC editors, you need to have the System Manager package installed, as well as the Microsoft Redistributable. Another example, sort of a different type of package, is our controller toolbox. So if you've used our PID control loop stuff, it comes in a library. That library is contained in the controller toolbox package. So the payload for that package, shown in the upper left, is the controller library. The metadata, a bit longer name, twincat.xae.plc.lib.tc2_controller toolbox. The version 3.6.1, author still Beckhoff. And this one actually has more dependencies. So this one requires that the standard library be installed, that the system library, that the utilities library, and that the event logger library all be installed. So those are two examples of two sort of types of packages that you may use. The next thing I want to define is workloads. So workloads are very similar to packages. They're a type of package, but the key difference is a workload doesn't have a payload. So a workload really then is just a bunch of dependencies, and it has metadata, it has names and versions. So you can think of a workload really as just a list of things to install and a name and version. So let's give you an example of a workload. The most common workload is the standard.xae. So the standard.xae has no payload itself. It doesn't actually have files in that workload file, but it does have metadata. It has a name, it has version, it has author, and so forth. And then it defines dependencies on other packages. So it includes a list of PLC editors, safety editor, system manager, EtherCAT config, all of these things so that they install when you install this workload. So that's an example of what a workload looks like. So let's talk about some of the workloads that are available in TwinCAT. All of the subcubes in the TwinCAT cube you can sort of think of as the workloads. These are the things you primarily are going to interact with as you work with Package Manager. So the standard remote manager is one workload. The TwinCAT 3 C++ tools are another workload. TwinCAT 3 HMI engineering is another workload. Motion designer, our standard XAE, of course, both the XAE and the XAR are each workloads. And the TwinCAT 3 Bodhi baseplot. These are just a sampling. There's actually over 100 different workloads in our stable feed. And we'll talk about how you manage those here in a moment. But it allows you to pick which components you're going to install in your TwinCAT system. So an important topic to also define here is where you're going to get your packages and workloads from. So that's what we use the Beckhoff feeds for. So your package manager shown off here to the left would connect to the Beckhoff stable feed. So the stable feed is the most common feed. It's the one that 90–95% of customers will use, and maybe the only one they will use. So it contains our production software. So anything that is released by Beckhoff that's supported on production machines is going to be in this feed. So this is the equivalent, if you've been a Beckhoff customer for a while, this is the equivalent of when it releases on the website or whatever. So this is the stuff that's supported. There's a couple other feeds that you may use. So the first one I want to talk about is Beckhoff testing feed. So this is where we put pre-release software. This is software that will probably be going to the stable feed soon. Allows you a chance to test it and see sort of where things are going. We might even direct you to this feed, or there are other feeds similar to it that we may direct you to get access to early code. The other feed I want to mention here is the Beckhoff outdated feed. So the outdated feed is for non-current software, older software of ours. This is really for your support users. So if you're supporting an older existing system with non-current software, that's where you'll get those components. So I'm going to dive into these a little bit deeper here. Here I'm going to show the Beckhoff testing feed and the stable feed. And I've shown one of the packages larger here. Just for the sake of this, we've put it at version 1.0.0. And you'll see that the package exists on both feeds. Well, as Beckhoff does development, we may develop a new version, a 1.1.0, and we may put it on the testing feed, have people test it, run it, in test environments, not on production software. And in that process, we may determine, we'd like to actually add some more stuff before we make this production. So we make another version, a 1.2.0. Again, customer testing, our own testing. And at some point we may say, okay, that's release software, that's supportable. And at that point, we would copy that package into the Beckhoff stable feed. And so it wouldn't matter where you got the software from. So if you installed it as a customer while it was a test version, it's still the same 1.2.0 version. So the version numbers are unique between all the feeds. The feeds are just a place that you get the packages from. Let's also talk about the outdated feed. So there's a few different things that are on the outdated feed right now that are good examples of what will be there. There's the safety editor. So older versions of the safety editor are available on the outdated feed so that you can support older equipment. There is the XAE remote managers. So if you haven't worked with our remote manager technology, it allows you to have a new version of our software installed, but still be able to target and support older versions of machines. So all of the 4024 and before versions are available through the remote managers on the outdated feed. There's also even clear back to TwinCAT 2 engineering. So TwinCAT 2 was released in 1996. You may still want to be able to support a system there. So you can download the engineering tools from the outdated feed and be able to support a system. So an idea of some of the things that are available in that outdated feed. Next, let's talk about other feeds. So let's talk about a custom feed. So you as a Beckhoff customer, you may build your own feed. So when you build a feed, this can be a local folder, it can just be a network folder, or you can actually set up your own NuGet server if you wish. But most are just a folder location somewhere, either locally or on the network, and it houses the different packages. So you can also have the package manager just point to your local feed. So it may be that the package manager points to your feed plus Beckhoff feeds, or you may point it just to your feed. So some of the reasons you might want to do this, you might want to distribute Beckhoff products through your own feed. This would allow you to cache them locally so that not every user needs to download them from Beckhoff. You may also want to limit to specific versions. So you may only put certain Beckhoff products in your feed for your development team to use. You could even set up custom access rights if you want different users within your organization to be able to access different packages, and even to distribute custom PLC libraries. So what is a custom package composed of? One other thing to define. So custom packages are just like the Beckhoff packages. They're going to have a payload. So your own installers, libraries, files, anything you're going to want to deliver to a system, those would go into the package. You'll also define the metadata, the name, the version, you as the author, description, icon, all those things as the metadata. And that will go in the package. And then, of course, the dependencies. So the dependencies can be dependencies to your own software, but they can also be dependencies to Beckhoff software. So those you'll define, and those will go into the package, and that's what composes your custom package. That you can also do custom workloads. So as I mentioned before, workloads are really just like packages, but how would you use these? So you may use a workload to define a system for onboarding other developers. So you could define all the tools that a developer would need in order to work within a team. So those could go into a workload. You also may take a system shown at the bottom here as Machine X that has a standard .xar and OPC server runtime, HMI server runtime. It could have these components, and you could build that out into a workload and even define a version. So for machine generation X at 1.0.0, it contains these packages at these versions. This would allow you to have a workload that would represent all the runtime tools that would need to be installed on a system, so you could use it to install for serial production, for example. You might also use it not only for the runtime components, but you may build it for the engineering tools for that same machine generation, so that you'd have all the XAA tools necessary to support one of those machines. So for machine generation X that might ship out into the field, you could have stored a workload that these are the tools that would need to install if you're going to go out to that machine and be able to connect and support it. So a really handy way to use workloads to define versions associated with the versions of your equipment. So we talked a little bit about the custom feeds and the custom packages. Now you can put those things together. You can take that custom PLC library that you might build, put it in a custom package, and put it on your feed. So this would be a way that you could deploy within your organization. Many of our customers have done custom libraries, but then it requires some mechanism to move it between the team. Having your own custom feed gives you a common place that your team can point to get those tools. You could also host those workloads I discussed and for Machine Generation X here so that your team can get access. They have one place that they can go to get packages, workloads, so forth. The last thing is, and I didn't mention this very much, but you can actually make packages out of third-party software or not just TwinCAT software. So you could take code written in C# or Python. You could take OS services, graphical tools, all these kind of things, build up a package. You could take third-party software for like text editors, web browsers, development tools, utilities, all these kinds of things. You can actually wrap up in packages and then use the packaging system to deliver it. For some of our scenarios within Beckhoff, we have used it to deploy things, for instance, like Notepad++ or other editors or tools. So a great way to also deploy other software. So when you do your own feed, there's a couple things you can do managing the packages that are on it. Again, similar to our previous example with this one package at version 1.0.0, but this time it's on the stable feed. And you at your company, you could mimic what we have on our stable feed just in your organization, just caching it locally. When we release a new version, you may, maybe you're not doing development at that period of time on a new machine, or you choose not to adopt a certain version. You can ignore that. You don't have to clone that onto yours. But maybe in the future, there's a version 1.2.0. You're building a new piece of equipment. You'd like to update it to the very latest. So you update to the very latest, and you can copy that just onto your feed, make it available for your team. What's a little bit different than the previous example, though, is now you can choose within your company, maybe you only want your developers to be using 1.2.0. So you can actually remove older versions, or you may remove whole packages together. So you can remove other packages. So you can choose which things you want to make available to your team. Something similar to the workloads I discussed is a topic of configurations. So configurations are a lightweight XML file that represents all of the packages on a system and the versions those are at. So it's a human readable XML file. We use this for a number of different scenarios. It's very easy to create. It's similar to workloads, but lacks the metadata, which is sort of the difference. If you contact our support, for example, and we want to replicate the system you're calling us about, we may ask you to export your configuration. And this, with a couple clicks, you can export. It creates an XML file. You can email that to us, and then we can build up a system exactly like the system you're on so that we can help support you. We may also, the other direction, send you a configuration file. If we want you to install certain versions of packages, this would be a way we could make it easy for you to get just the versions we want you to have. You may use this with your team for coordination. Maybe you haven't set up your own feed, and you've got your single developer, you bring on another guy, and you want them to also have the tools that you have. You can simply export your configuration, they can import it, and they now have all the same tools, or even across hardware. So I'm actually due to get a new laptop within my organization here soon. So what I will do is I've got TwinCAT all set up just how I want right now. So I will export the configuration off of my old system. When I get my new laptop, I just import the configuration and I'll be ready to go with TwinCAT. So a very handy and easy to use tool. So I'd like to give you a little bit of a demo, a live demo of this software. So here is the Package Manager 2.0. Many of you have probably already seen this. The first thing I'd like to start off with is down at the very bottom left, there's this settings icon. This pulls up the settings like when you first set up the Package Manager. Here's where you can configure the feeds. I've got those 3 feeds that I discussed earlier. The Beckhoff stable, the testing, and the outdated feed. You can also configure your integrations here. I just have the 2 versions of the XAE shell. If you had Visual Studio versions, they would also show here, and you could choose to integrate or not integrate into those. One thing to mention is if you're doing 4026 development, the 64-bit shell generally is much better performance, is just a better experience. But if you're supporting older 4024 systems, you'll also need to have the regular 32-bit XAE shell. That's what you'll need to use for support of those. The other thing I like to talk about is up here at the top left, we can choose what type of views, whether we're viewing just workloads or also packages. Most of the time you're going to use workloads as mentioned. We can choose which feed we actually want to use in our display here. I'm just going to display the stable feed. And then here I can turn on this, turn on and off this detail pane on the right and refresh as needed. So let's come here. First, we'll start off with Browse. So Browse shows me all of the things that are on the stable feed, because I have that selected, that I can install. So items like this are checked because I have them already installed. Others like this blue, I could click on this blue to queue it up to install. But this is for dedicated, this is for Beckhoff hardware. I'm running on my laptop right now. But here I could, for instance, queue up C++ to install, and it would go here queued up, ready to be installed. I'm not going to actually install that at the moment, but that's where you do it. You can also, for instance, Remote Manager, if I select it and go to versions, you can see that there's multiple versions. Remote Manager is like our libraries and a few other packages where it actually allows you to install multiple at the same time. So I could actually pick other versions to install of the Remote Manager. Next is the installed. This of course shows me what's currently installed on the system. If I needed to uninstall something, here's where I could select that to queue it for uninstall. That's where you'd manage installed systems. And then the updates, in this case I'm up to date, so nothing's showing, but that's where I would select updates and perform that. Off to the right, I've already mentioned the selected products. I could hit apply actions and it would actually do the installs and updates and uninstalls. I won't do that this time. If I had a package that I wanted to download for my feeds, I could actually select download here, and there's a separate download section where I could download those to add to my feeds. And then the last thing I'd like to show you is these last 2 icons are how I interact with the configurations. If I hit save configuration, it will generate an XML file that's all the versions of all the packages I have installed on the system. And then the load configuration is just as easy. Just run that, give it the time to install, and you'd be ready to go. So that's what the new Package Manager 2.0 looks like. I think they've done a great job on it. So let's go through a few more things here. As I mentioned on Remote Manager, I just want to highlight this again. If you need multiple versions, just go to the versions on the right and you can select through those. It is dependent on what feed you're connected to. When I did the live demo, I was just connected to the stable feed, or just showing the stable feed, so I didn't show the 4024 versions, right? So if you need the 4024 versions, make sure you connect to the outdated feed. Also, as of Package Manager 2.0, the Package Manager can self-update. So when there is a newer version of the Package Manager, you'll see this bar at the top. If you click on it, you'll get the Package Manager will shut down, it will launch the updater, and it'll proceed to do the update of the Package Manager itself. If you are still using Package Manager 1 versions, then you will need to go download a 2.0 version off of our website one last time, but from there on, you should be able to just update within the app, so you won't have to re-download anymore. I mentioned the updates. This is what that tab looks like You can individually select items to update at the bottom, or there's the select all updates at the top to just update everything. Very simple interface to use. For advanced users, there is a TCPKG command line tool. Behind the scenes of the GUI, all of the commands are actually being run through this tool. So it's capable of doing everything the GUI can, plus some additional functions. This can be a great tool if you're managing a fleet of systems, maybe with the IT group, if you're deploying to a number of controllers. So if you're doing serial deployment, this gives you a way to script through that. If you're creating a custom package, there's actually some steps that you would use using the command line as part of that process. Or if you just want to do any sort of custom package management process, whether that's querying things or doing actions, it just provides a lot of freedom that way. I want to talk about how we address remote systems. And in order to do that, I need to show you how we install on a regular system. So in a regular scenario, like we've been showing till now, and when you normally have used the package manager, when the package manager runs, it pulls a copy of the package into the package manager software, and then then gets installed on the local computer or IPC, wherever you're running the package manager. But sometimes you have a system, an IPC usually, that isn't connected to the internet or can't access the feeds directly. So how do you manage the packages on that system? So this is where remote comes in. So in these systems, you would set up a remote connection from a computer to the IPC that both have the package manager installed. Then on the computer, you can signal that you want to install in the IPC. It will take the package, moves it to the local package manager, and then over that remote connection, it will send that package to the remote system and then trigger the remote system to actually do the install. So this allows you from that computer to fully manage the packages on the IPC, all without it needing internet connection. The other tool that you probably encountered, if you've already updated to 4026 in the package manager, you've seen the migration tool. The migration tool is there so that it can take settings and installations and move those into the 4026 environment. So it will grab those settings, uninstall the old 4024 or other versions of TwinCAT or Beckhoff software that you have, install the package manager equivalents of those tools, and then reinstall your settings. If you have questions with this, please contact our support. They can help you with this transition process. But the migration tool makes this very easy to maintain the system that you want. So lastly, I want to make a little plug for our e-learning. Greg Holland, one of our trainers, has built a package manager module. It's within our TwinCAT 3 Getting Started training at our e-learning. There's a QR code in the bottom right where you can access our e-learning, or the URL is at the top. Our e-learning is a great resource. It's free, so please leverage that. This is a good thing to share with your team as well. And with that, I'd like to thank you. Let's see if we've got some questions to answer. One question, how do I use the remote capability in the Package Manager GUI? So the remote capability in the Package Manager GUI will be available in a couple months. Right now, the remote capability is in the command line, the TCPKG, which is usually where you're going to use that a lot anyway when you're doing serial production, but that should be available in the GUI in a short period of time. Okay, here's another. Beckhoff packages, how to transfer them to your custom feed. So if you download the packages as I showed in the little live demo, you'll download those to a local location, and then to put them in your custom feed, if it's a folder location, you're just going to copy those into the folder. Pretty straightforward. And there's nothing special you need to do on those folders to make them into a custom feed. The folder location is enough, and then when you add feeds, you can just select that folder location. So there's a question about admin privileges. The package manager will, you no longer need to right-click and run as administrator like you did with some of our older software, either when you install the package manager or even when you run it. When it goes to install packages, it's going to request from Windows that it has the appropriate privileges. So you may get your standard Windows pop-ups depending on how your computer is set up security-wise, but you should be prompted to elevate the privileges. Obviously, if you don't have installed privileges, then it won't be possible to install things. So you might need to work with your IT group there. There's a question about encrypted libraries on your custom feed. Yes, the custom feed can be encrypted libraries, can be really anything you want. Those packages in that payload can contain anything that makes sense for your architecture. Question about using the package manager with TwinCAT version 3 4022. So yes, absolutely, you can do remote manager for 4022. You would install the package manager with 4026, have all that. Then you would install the remote manager from that outdated feed. There is a few versions for 4022. There's actually versions going all the way back to 4018 that I've seen, and then in addition the TwinCAT 2 engineering. So there's quite a few options. So 4022 works there. Question about transferring a package or workload to a USB, looks like the question, to a USB memory drive. Yes, absolutely. So you can transfer those packages on, you download them, put that on the USB, and then you can take those to a remote system, either copy them local and make that the custom feed, or even point the custom feed at the memory stick, and you can install packages that way. It works great. Oh, there was a question about documentation for the TCPKG command line interface. So for the command line interface, it's actually self-documented, which is terrific. So if you type TCPKG and then do a /?, or if you do one of the commands like TCPKG list /?, it will tell you the options for that command and the deeper command. So just do TCPKG list and hit enter even, and it will show you the available commands, and it's really self-documented quite well. If you do have things that aren't in that though, feel free to contact our support. They'd be happy to help you with that. I think I've answered those all. If we haven't answered them, we'll look at it after. We'll make sure we answer those, or reach out to myself, your local Beckhoff representatives, or call our support group. We'd be happy to help you with any further questions that I might have missed. I appreciate everybody's time today to join us. Thank you very much.